Okay, guys. So I've got Koyul Films here, and the first episode of our series, where we, interview creators and find out what their buzz is and what kind of gear they're using and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to find out where did your photo and video journey start out?
It started out like a lot of people, like when I was a kid, I started out just shooting with little handheld cameras that my family had lying around. And then like it kind of just progressed in high school. I took a class and then ended up going to college for that. I went to college for some TV and film broadcasting. I did a lot of work in live production, live broadcasting, doing things for like car racing, like Formula Drift, and then doing live events like shooting model volleyball events, which is really weird. But I then just progressed to being like, well, I want to do something for myself. I don't want to just keep working for somebody else my entire life, or at least I want to be in charge of what projects I can take in. So I just branched off, started Koyol Films, and then as a way to like share my passion with photography and videography and stuff like that. And then now I'm pretty much here. So it's been over the span of about like 5 or 10 years that I've gotten to be at this point where I am right now.
100%, man. What a journey. What's some advice that you would give yourself when you first, like, if you could, like, time travel back, what's some advice that you would give yourself when you're first, like, discovering, photo and video?
I think like the biggest thing is just like be a hard worker, and that is such a vague answer, but it really stems from like being there, being wanting to be there. Really, like you'll go on a lot of sets, and you'll if you're just starting out, if you're gonna be doing video, especially, you're gonna start out as a PA, a production assistant, and from there it's pretty much the bottom of the barrel. You do pretty much whatever anybody asks you to do, but you'll be surprised. You go on so many sets, and there's so many people just like standing there or sitting down with, just like on their phones, texting on Instagram and doing all this other stuff, and not constantly or actively like being up in people's grills and being like, oh, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And like being that go getter and just really working hard in general, that's gonna make so much of a difference. And I wish I would have told myself that a little bit beforehand. And then also just not being like, don't be scared. Like there's always going to be people that are going to tell you no or don't do something, but you can't let that deter you. You just have to like go after what you want. And like I spent so much time being like scared and nervous and being like social, like getting social anxiety because I was like, oh, I don't want to reach out to these people. What if they say no? What I don't, just thinking of like the worst possible things. But really the only thing they can say is no. So like putting yourself out there is, I think, one of my biggest regrets. I didn't put myself out there enough.
Yeah, man, I totally understand. Like that whole social anxiety and putting yourself out there, it's pretty tough, but it's so good with with social media and that sort of thing. And so when did you start your Instagram and how was that going for you?
I started Koyol Films November in 2018, and I started that after a while of actually trying to make it with my personal account, and I'll have it, and it's linked to my in my bio. But after trying to do so many things with that account and not really going anywhere, and just being really stressed out, I was just finally like, I'm just gonna make this other account to share like camera gear, like things that I'm really interested in, and like that's just gonna be my fun account. I never really thought it was gonna be as big as it is now. It was just a way for me to relax, like take it easy, and just have some fun. And then it ultimately grew over time. People were like really interested in gear and seeing gear pictures and all the stuff that I was coming out with. And it just kind of grew. It grew to now being over 43,000 followers, which I never thought I was going to be able to get. That's completely mind blowing. Over something as simple as just holding up a camera and taking a picture, it's grown so fast and so much. I'm really thankful.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Like people love gear, absolutely love gear. Just on the topic of gear, what are you currently shooting with, and what did you like start out with in terms of gear?
I'm currently, my main shooter is a Sony A7R2. My most used lens on that system is a 24 to 70 G Master, so it's a 2.8. It's a pretty beefy lens. It's really expensive for a lot of people, but I think the 24 to 70 is just like the perfect all around lens. You can pretty much shoot anything with it. If you're shooting sports, you might want something longer, but overall amazing. But I started out with a Canon 60D, I believe. I think that's what it was here, at least here in America. In other places, it's going to be like 600D or something like that. I don't know why they changed the name, but either way, I started out with that. It was a pretty nice prosumer DSLR at the time. Now it's super basic. It doesn't have like any continuous autofocus capabilities or anything like that. But it's still a really good camera. I have it around, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of it, just because it was my first step to becoming where I am now.
Absolutely. And what are your thoughts on the Sony system? Are you quite embedded in that, or are you looking around at other brands and that sort of thing?
That's actually it's a tough question because so I have Sony cameras. I have so many Sony lenses that are pretty high end, like they're G Masters and stuff. But I still have a love for Canon. After like being a Canon shooter for so long and then migrating to Sony, you still have that like secret love for Canon. Like I still have L series primes and all that stuff. It's really hard to get rid of that. It's hard to be completely pushed away from Canon. It's so I still really like Canon, and I still hope that there's a camera that will eventually come in and be like, bring me back. But for now, I think the Sony is just a really good camera system. I love how the way it feels. I love that it's so adaptable to so many different situations. I like that it's progressive in a way that Canon hasn't been until probably really recently with the Canon R5 announcement. But I just felt that progression in Sony. I felt like they were really listening to what us creators were really wanting, and so that's where I kind of put my loyalties in. Not that I still don't like Canon, or I don't like Canon at all. I still really do, but it's just the camera system that works for me best right now is Sony.
Absolutely. It's just incredibly competitive at the moment with so many different cameras coming out. And as you mentioned, the R5, which is a biggie. So we'll see how that goes. But if you could only choose one lens and one camera to have for a lifetime, what would you choose? What would be your only lens and your only camera setup forever?
Oh, it's so difficult. That's so difficult because it really nails you down to certain things. Because before, like, I won't touch on it too much, but like a camera is really specific. Like each camera has its own real like what it's really good for. It's what it really suits more. And I think everyone's different, and every subject is kind of gonna need something new and different. But I think my go-to would probably be a Sony A7R, some kind of A7R, whether it's the A7R2 that I currently shoot with, or up to the A7R4 and the 24 to 70. I don't think I can live without that lens. So the A7R system with a 24 to 70 would be my go-to.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not into your prime lenses there?
Oh, I love primes, but I think if it's just me and I know that I shoot so many different kinds of things, I'm not shooting only gear photos. I'm shooting a lot of landscapes. I'm shooting some product work, and I think the 24 to 70 would just be my go-to. Primes are amazing and they're so nice to use, but I think if you're going to be switching around a lot, then the 24 to 70 is the way to go.
Yeah, 100%. I get this question a lot from people DMing me and that sort of thing about what sort of camera should they start off with? What would you recommend for a beginner?
For a beginner, I'd really recommend starting with like something kind of basic that gives you a little bit of room to grow. So you can look at anything from any of the manufacturers that have like they're one of their on the cheaper side, like the prosumer grades, because they might be a little bit more expensive than regular consumer cameras, but they'll give you that room to grow in the future. Like Canon has their 90D, which is like a prosumer camera. It's a great camera. It's crop sensor, but that's okay. It's not too much of a big deal. And then with Fuji, they have like their XT4s now, and then Sony has their A6000 series that you can look into. Any of those, but like to really decide on the camera, I think you have to know what you want to shoot. Like you can look at people who are shooting the same things you want to shoot, see what cameras they're using, and then you can kind of decide by that, and then ultimately you'll figure it out. with also like figuring out what colors you want to go with. Some cameras are better at other cameras in terms of warm colors, cold colors. So that's pretty much my route. Is just go for something that's expensive but not going to break the bank.
Yeah, so how do you come up with ideas and stay creative and that sort of thing?
Sorry.
Your photography and video.
First of all, I'm sorry it's warm in Los Angeles, so I'm a little sweaty. The AC is going, but it's not doing enough. But anyways, how do I stay creative? Is just trying things out, not trying to be super serious. I don't try to be super serious with what I'm shooting. That might sound kind of weird, but you gotta stay kind of flowing. You have to let things kind of come naturally to you. If unless it's like a certain project that you have like a certain idea for, and then you're just gonna make that concrete. You gotta know it. You gotta plan it out. That's perfectly fine, and that's what you should do. But in terms of like overall creative flow, like I just kind of let it come to me naturally. Like I love yellow because it's so vibrant and stuff, so it lends itself to a lot of positive energy. So that's kind of cool. I just try to stay,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, try to let it come naturally to me. It's
Do you vibe off other creators? Do you look at their accounts and
Oh,
get
yeah.
ideas and that sort of thing?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important thing to do. Although you shouldn't try to like completely replicate it, like everything that you see. I think you still have, it's really important for you to still put your own spin on things. Like anybody, like this is gear shots are like one of the things in particular that are really easy to copy, and really get started with, because like all it is just holding a camera up in your hand and then taking a photo. Like there's no super hard aspect about that. Like anybody can do it. It's adding your personality, doing it in your own way that really makes you stand apart from everybody else, and that's what you should be focusing on. You shouldn't try to replicate other people's work without putting your own stuff into it. Otherwise, you're not really learning to be a good photographer. You're just learning how to be a really good copycat, which I think a lot of people have issues with. And like purist photographers will be like, "You're not a photographer," like blah blah blah, and they'll just bang on you. You can show them they're wrong by putting your own personality in, and that's the important part of photography.
Absolutely. I guess with the iPhones that are coming out and all the smartphones
Mm-hmm.
with really good video and photo quality versus mirrorless cameras, what do you think is going to be the future with photography and video with all these really good smartphones coming out?
I don't think like well, it's gonna be a very exciting future. That's gonna be for sure. Because with the quality of like the phones, like camera quality improving so much and so dramatically in only a short like amount of time, really, it's gonna be really hard. It's gonna be really exciting to see what is gonna come out in the future. Like if that's gonna be like the new level of shooting, but it's gonna be really hard since their sensors are not as big as a traditional camera. Right? You're not gonna get as much information. As good as camera phones are, they really lack that depth. They're not going to have that same thing, and that's not maybe going to happen for another few years, or maybe will never happen. I don't know. I can't say. I'm not as big of a tech person as I would love to be, or something like that. But I think for the most part, cameras are still going to be like the go-to if you're going to do any serious client work for like professionals. But in terms of like everyday carry, in terms of like vlogging and stuff like that, I think phones will probably really make it more competitive in that market space, in that the creative space. Phones are going to be used up a lot more, and I think it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, 100%. I guess just to finish the interview off, what's going to be the future for yourself there? What have you got planned for the next couple of years and that sort of thing? What are you wanting to grow and look into?
Well, I really want to keep going and get more into like some narrative commercial shooting for companies, travel around and doing other things like that. Because I'm still a really big fan of narrative film work. I love being on set and I love directing. I love, that creative process. But I also have enjoyed working with other companies. I've enjoyed trying to promote other people and trying to build a community around everything that I've been doing. So I think in the future I'm going to create stuff that people can really get behind. Still work with companies. Still trying to make a community out of what we have, And like again, like I said, just work with other people. I think that's going to be the most exciting part. But hopefully, build a business out of that.